All right, good evening. We'll give people just a couple of seconds to get in, to join us, to be a part of whatever we're going to be discussing tonight, whatever takes place on the market close as well. 30 minutes until that happens, but I'll just give everyone a little patch of time. And good evening, chat. Welcome. What a fun week, huh? Bullishness. And quite rightly, bullishness into whatever this is, whatever this environment is. And I think there'll be very, very polarized opinions on whether or not this represents another opportunity to be buying the markets, whether or not this represents an opportunity for potential failure of some of these bullish moves that we've seen, whether or not it heightens the need and the thought process around asset selection, maybe to a higher extent, because some markets have once again dealt with things quite positively. Other markets have been less positive in their reaction. So some markets have already traded down into fresh lows that have undone the moves that we saw. Some markets like BTC, yes, we're lower, but we're not kind of, crazy degrees lower from where we have been. So I think probably brings into the thought process asset selection a little bit more as well. When we take the BTC side, and we'll start off with kind of thought process there. The BTC side, this was all looking fine, right? This was all looking pretty good, pretty tasty, pretty good opportunity from a bullish perspective to get involved with this. And then, unfortunately, we had the breakdown on the 4-hour, and we're now in a situation here where we're losing the former high level. And this level has been important to us up here. It's been obviously a good reaction point from back at the tail end of 2024 with the all-time highs. And then during even this area here, it's been a nice spot for us as a midway point of what we've been experiencing over here. And you can kind of see around the 4-hour over here. Right, this is a pretty decent level that we've got. Around 106.5 is the level. We lost that. Failure here. Everything looked okay here. Looks like a really good touch. Risk reward was very much favoring the long side setups, and then failed, falls through. And this is obviously the action that we had yesterday when things really from a kind of like a global perspective started kicking off a little bit more. That's the failure and the breakthrough that we had through there. And so now we're in a position where we're just back underneath this 106,500 level that ideally we would like to be trading above. But realistically, this higher time frame view hasn't shifted to a great degree here. We've done this whole like divergence play out thing. We've done the whole correction here. So the way that we view this right now is that this here is our diverging period of price action. This here is the play out of that divergence. And then basically from this point here, we begin fresh price action. So what we are is here is we're engaged in now fresh price action here. Okay. So all of this is just fresh and shouldn't be looked at in relation to this. So we got kind of two very separate thought processes around the way that price action is trading through these zones. And this is kind of one of the ways that I like to view the market and think about the market from that process of simplification as well. So what we're doing here is we're saying, look, this chapter here, which is our divergence price action, this chapter is closed, okay? That chapter's finished. The story has been told. This here now is fresh price action, and we're waiting to see what develops here. So we can take this as very much kind of chapters in the story. This chapter's done. We played out the PA. This chapter is beginning, and we're still to determine what is going to be the reaction and, the future for this area of price action. And the reason that we say that is that the divergence has a crossover here, and the divergence has a crossover here. Higher time frames, when we get to the 3-day and we get to the weekly, still in a pretty good position. And especially when we look at the weekly, this is the one that really helps to kind of ground us in terms of, you know, where BTC is trading. And we know that really just staying above 104,000 is the really important level for BTC. We didn't have any weekly closes above 104,000. We've achieved that now. And my expectation would be that we can trade sub 104, but we shouldn't be closing weekly sub 104. Right? We don't want to see this as a situation where we get this break back under the former highs. We should really be stabilizing above there now. I think some people would maybe quite rightly bring up some concerns about the potential for momentum through here and the fact that we really haven't kind of seen anything significant in terms of the break and continuation to the upside. But again, when we look at this, you know, we're 3 weeks into a consolidation at the top of here, and that really isn't a long time in the grand scheme of things, okay? So not really a thing through here. So really the summary here is that a higher time frame looks good. The lower time frame is continuing this kind of aggressive or more shitty price action just because it's on the downside, and then alts across the board we've seen a more negative reaction. I think ETH is probably one of the more interesting discussion point markets as well for this patch of time. Yesterday lower time frame was just the most rancid patch of price action through here. Like just garbage back and forth, just inability to do anything, and then finally broke down. And very much like BTC, ETH had a key level in here as well. And we can see that laid out here. This is kind of the easiest way for this to be looked at. So what we had is our consolidation range, 30 days in length. We had the failed breakdown. We had the immediate recovery of ETH back inside here. And now it looks as though we've had the failed breakout and the move back down towards these lows on the daily. So we're still trading within this consolidation range. And we've now had both the lows and the highs here in terms of the breaks. And once again, we're just in that situation, which is boring as shit to say and talk about as kind of an analyst or a content production value, but we're just in a waiting game again. Now, you can speculate if you think that, you know, this here is kind of bearish in its nature, and therefore you think the most likely outcome is this one. That's absolutely fine to speculate on that thought process. Others may just say, well, we're back in this consolidation range. We might just do this again for another month, and summer might really be a slowdown. And we'll wait and see what happens. When it comes to my perspective, I guess I don't really have one as much. I don't think that the failed breakout is something that looks great. We all know about the significance of this level down here at 2150. We discussed that on the stream before I went away. I'll be a buyer at 2150. I won't be a buyer again in here. Yeah. You know, and maybe we are heading towards the summer cool down, but the environment still feels a little bit too hot and volatile, especially obviously on news events and everything that we've had now kicked off on that side. And really what it does is it just adds to that level of unknown in the environment. So the way that we have, you know, we've had all of the tariff stuff, and we know that shit like that can just happen and change at any point in time. We've now got the situation obviously that's going on in the Middle East, and that's going to cause a problem to the charts, especially with escalation. So just a situation where it just adds a lot more unknown to the market. And then when we speak about the unknowns, it would be kind of, you know, wrong of me not to discuss the metals, because the metals are in a significantly strong point through here. So obviously on the back of what we had in terms of news breaking out, gold has continued its rally and is looking as though it wants to break out of this consolidation. And gold's been doing a very good job. You know, we might have been a little bit distracted in terms of the crypto moves, but gold has just been consolidating up here. So we're still in price discovery mode. We're having some problems around 34.30 on gold, but this is looking like a really strong market for the time being. And so the metals, gold, and we'll come on to silver in a second, are performing still very, very well through this region and taking advantage of that market kind of unknown. We know that metals thrive in environments that are not particularly structured, environments that are subject to volatility, environments that are kind of cause concern for the market. We know that that is typically good conditions for the metals, and silver really is no exception. This move I've been waiting for a long time as kind of a silver maxi, but this move above this 35 region here, 12-year resistance, is very, very significant and important. And even on the lower time frame, we've seen very good recoveries when we started to trade back down towards this level. Silver just tightening up through here. It's done nothing over the last 2 days. Every time that we have sold off, we seem to have recovered relatively well, but this is actually choppier on the lower time frame than most other markets for right now. But higher time frames, very, very good for silver through here, and we're just looking now for the move to 50. And this is actually something that we pointed out on the prior stream. One of the things that we discussed was, look, the environment for crypto looks pretty decent right now. And we were saying that, you know, the indexes, my belief was at the time, I remember having the discussion with chat about, I think the upside and all-time highs is more likely for the indexes versus that correction. I think at the time we were looking at like 5,400 or something being the correction point, and then all-time highs being the upside shot. And I said that I believed that there was a far greater chance of hitting all-time highs than there was of getting that correction based on how the market was looking. And the one cause and the one problem with my analysis and thought process was always that metals look good. And typically when metals look good, something's broken. And that situation, unfortunately, has kind of, you know, reared its head a little bit more from where we are now. And we see, obviously, globally, things are tense. And the metals are responding again favorably in those conditions. But that being said, we kind of don't want to overanalyze too much, or my aim is to not overanalyze too much. I can let the markets do their thing, let risk do its thing, let the metals do their thing, and then take stock from there. But that has been the concern. Why are metals strong? Why do metals look so good? So what I'm essentially saying here is that I predicted everything that would happen in terms of the war, based on the fact that there was an RSI reset on the metals. I mean, it's that simple. You know, you talk about kind of, you know, geopolitical experts. Just give me an RSI and I'll tell you what the global picture is. Yeah, and I think that, you know, chat kind of right here in terms of some of the thought process, right? Not everybody's correct in this, in what's going on here, but I'm not short in the indexes. I think there's a good case to do it. I don't think there's a problem if you wanted to short the indexes. I think that they're, you know, lined up in a position here to be able to try and do that. I'm personally not. I think, you know, when you've got 15 minutes left before a weekend, I can probably avoid shorting these. Chances are, obviously, if something happens on the weekend, then we're going to gap down lower. But yeah, I'm just not shorting these markets for now. Not that there isn't a setup, just I don't think it's worth the time at the moment. Yeah, we rallied from 4,800 to 6,050, so a correction is just normal. And I think that's a good way of viewing the market as well. You know, yeah, the market has been reactive to the news, but, you know, you also take a look at the way that this market has rallied up here. This is a full V reversal. And now we're at an important point. We talk about this very often in terms of kind of those battle points for the market. And here's our high. Right, here's our newly established low, and here's our potential lower high. So this region here is going to be a battle. Right, this region here is going to be a battle because risk reward wise, if you're looking for a macro short on the indexes, this is your positioning spot. Because trend wise, this is going to provide you with the best opportunity that there is in order to capture a significant short down here. So these areas based on market structure are always going to be significant spots in terms of battle. And we're just up here right now. Yeah, long gold, long silver. I mean, like the metals are fine. You know, the metals are in a good position, and gold and the silver are also still in a position where, you know, they've got the potential to move from where they are. And they've got the potential to continue from here. So lower time frames, yeah, you're a little bit extended down on the lower time frames, but higher time frame, I think there's still value in the trade side. And then on the crypto side, it's really just about asset selection. It's just about picking what you choose to engage with. Like hype obviously is still very, very strong. So still a market that's showing a lot of strength. Heading towards the weekend as well, alts may get increased relief. But then you've got other markets that are a lot weaker in terms of their responses on the downside. You've got some markets that are giving everything back. You've got markets like ETH, which are actually still holding up relatively well. You've got DeFi on ETH, which is still, again, holding up relatively well. And again, in line with corrections that you would expect to see after those markets have been some of the better performers. Now, unfortunately, you've got markets like Sol, which are still looking weaker. And we're just back into the same old story on Sol. It's really just a boring analysis piece where ideally 143, 144 holds because it's a nice support area. If it breaks, then you're looking back at 129s, 130s. It's the same old boring story. It seems like we're fucked for a few weeks. The majority of people will be fucked for the next few weeks because the volatility will be too much to handle. That's the downside, is that actually it's probably our own actions that cause the getting fucked to happen because we're over trading, our targets are out of line, the volatility comes at the worst time and stops us out. And so when we view the market, there are times where it becomes very simple to trade. And actually the markets were very simple to trade when we started to see that impulse on the markets. Now we've got something that has come along that adds another unknown to the market and makes things more difficult from a trading perspective. If you're holding spot in this, does a huge amount change? Probably not. A lot of the setups are still as they were 2-3 weeks ago. Nothing, again, has really changed, apart from obviously now being back lower towards potential entry points. When it comes to actively trading, a lot more difficult to manage because your trade can be coasting, looking great, and then suddenly something comes along that immediately stops you out. You don't think alts are just going to shit the bed over the weekend due to uncertainty? Again, I could absolutely make that argument. You know, it's like Sol here. I could absolutely make the argument that 143 is going to be lost and it's going to end up at 130s to close the week. Absolutely make that argument. You can make the argument that ETH will lose the bottom of the range again and will close lower, and therefore 2150 is on the cards. You know, you can absolutely play out that scenario. And all we're doing is we're taking the last 3 days of price action and we're saying, well, as a response to what we've seen in terms of the selling and the greater uncertainty that now is in the market, there's a good chance that a lot of these markets end up trading lower. And then your decision from there is whether or not you want to try and actively trade that, or whether or not you want to hold spot through that, or whether or not you want to use this as a buying opportunity. That's really what it comes down to. How quickly do you think there's a resolution? Is there a resolution? What do you think what impact does that have on prices? And do you want to be actively trading, or do you just want to be buying and then forgetting about it? I think Anon looks good. Yeah, I see chat talking about Anon. I like Anon a lot. I think it's a very, very clever product. Comfy in the spot has never been more real. Yeah, we'll just bring back the meme. You know, we'll just bring back the meme again. But when you look at a BTC chart, and obviously exclusively BTC, I'm aware that your alts are going to look different. But I really don't think that this is a bad picture at all. When you look at a monthly chart on BTC, there's not a single person that can turn around and say that this is bearish. This is an absolutely fine picture. The majority of us are down here on the 15-minute and the 5-minute charts, which is why things are more emotional. But from a higher time frame perspective, there really is not a problem with the way that BTC is trading. So we're cooked. No, I'm trying to show you that that's not the outcome. I mean, it depends what you hold. Depends what you hold. What's the indicator you always share on Twitter? Are you talking about Renko charts? Are you talking about this? It's just another form of charting, if that's what it is that you're... I hold ETH and LTC. 3 days ago, I would have said they're great holds. I'm holding ETH as well. So... yeah, it's just... so that's just Renko, man. It's just a different form of charting. It's instead of using candlesticks, it uses something else. I would love to explain how I use it, but that takes quite a bit of time. And it doesn't make for the greatest discussion. It will take me quite a lot of time in order to explain a Renko system to you. There's some really good content on Renko. You can access that online. You can obviously access that in the Haven as well, should you wish to. But yeah, for me to sit and go through it, it's for a lot of people that's like a brand new topic. So we're really starting at kind of at point A. And I think for the majority of people here, they just want to hear like, is the market cooked? Are my bags cooked? Are we safe? Are markets okay? You know, what do you think? Is it better than Heikanashi or Heinekanashi, as you say? Yeah, for sure. I think MSTR is, again, another market that's in a relatively decent position still. It's got some work to do, but I think that this is, again, a perfectly fine consolidation patch. I think it looks better than BTC in the way it's trading through here. You got the daily, which is looking relatively solid. We're just consolidating. But the higher time frame's in a really, really solid place here. Slightly biased because of my position. But, you know, I'm a big fan of MSTR in terms of holding. Damn, is there a way to get into the Haven but only follow you and nobody else and get no notifications from others? Damn, man. I appreciate that you want all of my shit. That's very kind, but there isn't. there isn't a way to block the other dudes. Some of their shit might be helpful too, but I appreciate that. Yeah, good time to look into some of the robotic stocks while the markets are cooling. I think that would be a good opportunity for sure. Again, kind of shared this list last time, but here you go. This is the list through here of some of the robotic stuff. Some markets a lot weaker, some markets still strong and managing to hold. But definitely, if you're looking for longer term holds, I think that the robotics plays are very, very good. And then I also think, and I've been a big fan for a long time. I know Barrett's got a clip ready of me talking about LMND, but I think that LMND also looks really, really good through here as well still. This is the market that we were talking about, and I tweeted about having the simplest monthly setup that you'll ever find. So I also think markets like LMND are also looking very, very strong still. The majority of the market here has largely been on move today. Today has been a pretty positive day for the market. It's just the future uncertainty. Savola says, appreciated, man. When I saw your post about emotions and we are just consolidating, that really motivated me to stay. And now I'm printing. Really, thanks. Pleasure. I appreciate that as well. Very kind of you. And yeah, the emotional side of trading. It was nice to tweet about that again, because the emotional side of trading is super, super important. One of the most important for the majority of people. It's not about charting. It's not about doing any of that shit. It's not about kind of learning more about charting. It's about learning how to deal with emotion, especially in this market, because everything is so emotionally charged. Everybody's desperate to make money, and that impacts emotions in a very, very big way. So yeah, I appreciate hearing that resonated. Just got some Pokemon restocks today. What are we buying? What's on the list? Yeah, I've had a ton of stuff come in. Hey CBS, hey Willow. Just trying to reshape the portfolio here. Want to go from 16 coins to 5 max. Is there a best time to do so? Exit on the pump is better, but then the shit bags would underperform anyway, even during said pumps. But also lost more value on dumps, maybe. Thoughts? Now, I know, Willow, that you'll have heard me say this before, but this is one of those ones that as somebody who is speaking on stream and doing content, it's very difficult for me to help you with that thought process. The first thing I will say is that I think you're doing a very good job in terms of reducing something from 16 assets down to 5. I think that's really, really smart to do. When it comes to timing and exiting those positions, that's a lot harder for me to say. Because, you know, as we discussed on the last stream, you know, I told the dude to exit right at the pico bottom of waves before it ran like a 50x. So, like, what I say is kind of very challenging to get it right. You know, if I say, yeah, you should do it now, and then the market turns green this weekend and rips to the upside next week, okay, it looks like a bad decision. So that really is a personal one. But I suspect that you have a very good grasp on those bags and those markets, and you can find the right times to kind of de-risk. If you're in a position where you're looking at doing that and you want to reduce portfolio size, or at least kind of come to a more manageable number of assets that are included within there, the one thing I would say is that if you treat it like a fresh challenge, sometimes it's mentally easier to do. So if what you do is you decide to close down 10 of the positions, let's say, then what you do then is you look at your portfolio and you basically start fresh. You say, okay, well, now these are my stable holdings. These are the assets I'm holding. This is day one. What do I want to do from here? So sometimes when we reshape that activity, it makes it easier to make decisions about buying, selling, etc. So if you can frame that as, oh, this is day one of my new approach, my new portfolio building structure, and this is what I'm going to do, sometimes it makes it easier that you just had to close some of those positions in a loss. Okay, does that make sense? Blooming Waters 151, nice job. Yeah, great buy. When does this all end and go into a bear market? I mean, I don't know. I know what the answer is to that. I know what the answer is to that. I mean, I hope a long time. Do you think ETH is now done with this war? Yeah, maybe ETH will be the one that ends it. I bought a crap ton of ETH, seeing 3,900 on the chart, and now despite holding relatively well today, it's holding relatively well today despite the news. Do you see it still heading to 39.41? I think 39.41 is too aggressive anyway for where ETH would trade to. I think that getting up to 31 is kind of a far more manageable, shorter time frame target. That's kind of the one of the major areas just above us for ETH. So that really would be kind of first target versus getting back into the highs. I mean, sure, overcome this, then this is next up, but, step by step, baby steps, especially in this environment. So this would be your first target area. Is ETH done here? What you need to think about is, like, let's say you've got an average entry of like here, okay? What you need to think about is, what do you do if ETH does this? So if the prospect of, and let's say you're aiming for here, just for simplicity's sake, if the prospect of ETH trading down towards 2150 scares you, you probably shouldn't be in position here. If this is fine and you're choosing to average down your entry by coming, by us trading into 2150 and you average down to here, then that's fine. You should continue to hold. If you're nervous about the way the position looks based on where you're currently entered and you don't have the risk tolerance to survive this move, that's when you should think about whether or not you should be holding spot or not. Because I can't tell you the future. I can't, kind of give you that outcome. I don't know what's going to happen to ETH here. I don't know if this is going to result in continuation down. I think that the only way that you can think about it is in terms of, what is the plan if that happens? So again, if this makes you freak out, you shouldn't be in position here. If you want to add here, that's fine. You can continue to hold. So it's all about planning the outcome. Recommend any memes right now? We're gonna do a meme stream this week. Little break from the norm. I'm gonna do a little meme stream this week and catch up on the trenches and see what's going on there. Bought FARTCOIN after a daily lick sweep. In times like now, when there's added uncertainty, would it be better to continue holding till stop loss, break even, or run the winner and get out of things? Again, that's a personal decision. All right, that's a personal decision. What I just discussed applies equally to what you've just asked me, which is, if you're concerned about price going back towards break even, how pissed off will that make you be? Will you look back on that and say, you fucking idiot, you should have taken the profit on it? So if the thought of going back to break even scares you, then you shouldn't be in the position, you should take the profit. Because otherwise we just turn situations that are positive into situations that become regret, and then that regret shapes the way that we trade in the future. If you're super chill about it coming back down to your entry, and you're like, yeah, it doesn't bother me, this is a long-term trade, I'm planning on holding this for the next 12 months, then again, that's a different scenario. So you need to think about what are your risk tolerances and what are your time lengths like for hold. Do those two match up towards continued correction? How are you feeling emotionally about the market? Would you be okay with a entry being tagged again? And then make your decision from there. The cycle seems so different. The reason this cycle feels so different is because the majority of people are still trading alts. And so this cycle does feel a lot different in terms of success, I think, for a lot of people. Like, alts have been harder to trade. They've been worse in terms of upside, which is very unusual for us in this space, that BTC dominates those gains and that strength for such a prolonged period of time. And maybe in hindsight, it shouldn't have come to any surprise that BTC has done that, given what we've seen in terms of, demand for BTC and the kind of the fundamental shift that BTC's had, especially from a Wall Street perspective. But I think that's why. It's just because alts have been harder, and even our alt seasons haven't been the alt seasons of yesteryear. They haven't been the same cycle alt seasons that we've experienced, and We just have a market where BTC seems to just continue to have strength and not relinquish it to alts. What have been your regrets in 2025 in terms of trading stocks? Genuinely, and I'm not just saying this to try and be some, you know, dick of a larger account, but my stock trading this year has been very, very good. I don't really have any regrets on the stock trading side of things. I think I've been very alert and receptive to what's been going on. I caught really good shorts in March. I bought really good positions on the V reversal. So I'm kind of really happy on the stock side of things. 2025 overall has been a year so far, touch wood, of having no regrets from a trading sense. Yeah, I could write you a book on my regrets of 24, but 25, a different chapter. What's up, Clive? Welcome. From experience, it's better to trim down the amount of alts you have in your bag, as that allows you to manage it a lot better. Yeah, I used to have too many coins. Classic. And this is the thing that we discussed when we were in kind of the height of the bull market, or at least getting that corrective structure of the market. One of the things that we discussed in quite a big way was like the way that portfolios start to creep bigger and bigger and bigger. So it starts off and you invest in BTC and ETH and Sol maybe, and that feels fine. And then you start to dive a little bit deeper. So you start adding in some other shit, like you start buying a little bit more Bonk and Whiff and Popcat. And then suddenly you're like really in the trenches and you're buying like 5 million market cap coins. Then suddenly you're buying like 250K market cap coins. And before you know it, your portfolio has gone from like 3 majors into like 25 different assets. And you know, that just happens in this space. That's what happens, because it feels like you need to find and identify opportunity, and you dive deeper and deeper through the layers in order to do that. That's one of those natural portfolio things in crypto. The spreading out of the portfolio wider and wider, casting the net further to try and hit a catch. I mean, I don't know what other markets are really of interest right now. Like, everything's just a bleed out. We've had US market close now. I mean, if shit hits the fan, this is probably when it starts again anyway. Just wait till the market closes and then unleash the bad news again. And this weekend's probably just going to be a chop fest. This weekend will probably, you know, you got this area up here, so you know we might come and do this, and then might end up sweeping a low, and unless of course something happens, which is why we can't look at the weekend now and be like, oh yeah, this is the way it's going to work out. I wish I bought Platinum in my real account instead of my paper trading account a couple of months ago. Yeah, we spoke about the Platinum range. What is it, like 13 years of sideways action? Hey, CBS, you mentioned you took 3 spot entries on ETH. Yes. Are you seeing that as a starter position now, looking to add more at 2,200? Yeah, I am. I think I'm 50% done. 2150 would be the zone that I would just jam the rest. Yeah, that's like the zone I would just jam the rest. And then I'd have to be out below that. Like if we lose 2150, I just have to swallow it and say, fuck, you know, bad choice. I'll add that to my regrets for 2025, but then be out. Yeah, institutions dipping heavily into crypto. Wouldn't Circle be a good bet until the end of the cycle? Yeah, I was looking at Circle again today. Like, just so much strength on this for now. You know, maybe now isn't the right time to buy. Maybe it is. Like when you got a market that has so little data, then, you know, it's hard to say whether or not, you know, you should just be like diving in at a point like this. But quite clearly, what we've seen from initial launch down here, we've already nearly seen a 2x in terms of price. We have seen a 2x from price from initial launch. And there seems to be a significant amount of demand here. Thoughts on syrup? Yeah, I mean, I think this one is relatively clean because you've just got a major area down here, which is now going to be kind of bidding territory. So you've just got very simple risk reward on something like this through here, which is, you know, why I traded this position, which was just playing into the upside breakout of this level being tapped so many times and obviously being in positive conditions at the start of the week. But you've got the level that needs to hold. You've already had one that's just jammed into 45 cents and, you know, has had a very good recovery. So this is the level you need to hold. If you do hold that, then this is a great market in terms of trading to the upside. We can keep that one super simple. There are too many alts now. Also true. Way too many. How's your golf game? How's the golf game? Yeah, it's okay, I guess. It's improving. And I think it's getting ready to get better again. I think something's gonna, you know, click. For anybody that plays golf out there, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this as well, and if you're a far better golfer than I am, I've reached the point where really and truly now I believe that you don't need to swing powerfully at the ball. So I was that classic golfer of trying to hit too hard, feeling as though I needed to do the work and not the club. And now I truly understand that with a smooth swing, everything works. With a smooth swing, I can hit the ball comfortably, good connection. Great. Try and jam that little bit more power. Try and swing that club a little bit too hard. Everywhere. I guess like trading, there's a lot of mental shit that goes on in golf. It's very difficult when you just stand over a ball when you're in the middle of the fairway looking at hitting a shot. A lot of mental stuff goes on. Do you think we get ETH above 5K before the cycle ends? I don't know about that. Yeah, so you liquidate all of your ETH with a decisive close below 2150. I think I would have to. I think it would be a mistake to continue to hold if it can't stick 2150. Like what does the future hold for ETH if it can't hold 2150? That's a monstrous level. It's also a level that hasn't had a retest. Yeah, grip too hard, swing too hard. Yeah. Yeah, so now I've truly realized that I can strike a ball very well if I don't try and strike a ball very well. Yeah, hype looks great. Hype looks great. This just looks like a 4-hour reset. It looks as though it wants to try and go again. Hype's in a very positive position. Would not surprise me to see this trading at 50. Would not surprise me. You can go 12 DSB deep like John Daly. Yeah. I'd be playing barefoot. Just pounding the beers. ETH is dead. Don't say that. That's not how we want to be. ETH's going to be fine. This is just not a great look through here, that's all. Have we had any other major instances of an immediate rejection like this? This one is relatively similar. Right, because like this is a resistance point, this is a breakout, this is an immediate failure back inside, this is a retest back down at the lows, and then it's movement up. So maybe there's hope. I mean, look, this is the perfect bait. This is everything you need to know from an influencer perspective. You look at the chart for like 3 seconds, you find something that looks vaguely familiar, and now you tweet this out. Easy as that. Right, guaranteed 500 likes. I just say ETH has done this once before in 2023. Everything's fine. 4K next. 500 likes, done. I don't think I have any views on Launchcoin. IPO was 33 on Circle? Jesus. What a joke. That's one of the easiest buys that we've had. All right, we'll do another 10 minutes and then we'll wrap up. Any questions that you have? Ideally right now, not tickers, just because we know what's going on and we know what's going on in the market. So any tickers would be great. Not great. Fuck. Just normal questions would be great. Oh, and then also this is worth discussing as well, or at least putting out there. This here, and I've just linked it in the chat for those that can see it. This is the link to the CBS Telegram. So if you want to have some kind of market thoughts and some market discussion, that is the place that it will happen in. It's far more long form than it is on Twitter, where I don't really share a lot of shit anymore. In order to get in there, you just need to sign up at BLOFIN and make a deposit. If you do that, you'll get access to the Telegram, and that's all you need to do. But I thought I'd bring that to your attention if you weren't aware. And also, it's like super dodgy sharing like TG links on Twitter. I feel as though people quite rightly don't want to click on those, but letting you know that's from a legitimate source. So if you do want to hop into the TG and see some longer form content updates from me, and that's a method for doing so and for gaining access. What about Coinbase listing base DEX coins directly? What do you think about that, Jimmy? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Positive? How trustworthy is BLOFIN? What's your scale here? Like a 1 being like an FTX, and what's your 10? What I would say about BLOFIN is that I have some very, very good friends that have spent a lot of time with BLOFIN and the BLOFIN team. And these are guys who are very switched on and very intelligent, and they're ones that actually put me on to the BLOFIN discussions. So I am trusting their word for trustworthiness. I've had nothing but positivity whenever I've engaged with the team there, and whenever things have, been sorted, been done, been actioned. But like I say with every single exchange, and I say with everything that you do in crypto, the best thing that you can do is always protect yourself, right? I'm here as a sponsored stream for BLOFIN. and it didn't matter who I was representing, my advice to you would always be never deposit more than you can afford to lose at any location in crypto, regardless of who they are, whether that be Binance, BLOFIN, whoever. Oh, shit, yeah, we should buy a ton of gold. Of course we should. Yeah, of course we should. Are we heading towards QE? Well, are we even going to have a Powell? Like, are we even going to have a Powell in that situation? Because that's going to be one of the unknowns for the market as well. Things start to hit the fan. Pressure on Powell's going to mount from Trump. What do we do then? I know we're heading towards QE. Coinbase perp trading coming to the States, good or bad? I mean, I don't think you should allow Americans to trade, full stop. Would that not completely destroy the USD valuation? From what perspective? Like what discussion point is the destruction of USD valuation? Jerome or QE? Better than Celsius. Jesus. We've been through some shit, huh? I still love being in these streams and seeing like the names here that have been here for like so many years. It's so like familiar and nice to see those names here. Because we stream through wild times. We stream through boring as shit times, like now being one of them. But we stream through some wild stuff too. We've been here a long time. I think this year is 4 years of streams. And 4 years in crypto is pretty much 40 years of traditional markets, so yeah, we've seen some shit. Evening Stone. Welcome. Great timing. We got 4 minutes left and you're just rocking up now. And Mr. Smith, when you say on Twitter people are proposing Ron Paul to be the new Fed chair, is what you're saying like that's what the discussions are? I remember the Sunday streams in 21. Yeah, man. Yep. Weirdly, Sunday nights are also the highest engagement spot that I have. So, statistically, my tweets are better engaged with on Sunday evenings than any other time during the week, which is odd. Having dinner? Nice. What was on the menu? Yeah, Sunday night, another one. Sunday night streams were great. Sunday night's like one of the best times to stream anyway. Yeah, back when I was all over the place trading whites. I think that's one of the reasons that I love seeing the familiar names, because I know how advanced some people are from back then. Oh, all in on CHF, yeah, man. I'm so mad that I remember that discussion. Like, why does my brain have to remember that? Couldn't it have just filtered you out in your fucking CHF? But it hasn't. It just, as soon as you said that, it brought it all back. Lamb's rack, fries, and Greek salad? Man's living good. Damn. This your last cycle along with me? No, man. No way. I'm way too addicted to this shit. Last cycle? I'll be doing this shit forever. I know it now. I know it now. Maybe like in less degree. Like this cycle, I've already chilled out a lot. Like I don't really care as much about the Twitter side anymore. I care about kind of making better market decisions versus being vocal on Twitter. So like I'm already starting to chill out. So, you know, I think that's all that will happen is I'll still always be doing stuff because this space is just way too much fun to not be. But yeah, I just think that, you know, time priorities will just be focused into other places versus the kind of, you know, really public view of Twitter, I think. Oh, God. I hope the duckies are good. Well, I hate to break it to you. They're not. They're not. They unfortunately met their end at the hands of a fox, which I am absolutely devastated about. But I appreciate you remembering them. But yeah, that was unfortunately a sad end to the tale. Store is added 4 years later, unfortunately for me. Sunday streams with the Game of Thrones music for Futures Open was fun. We'll bring it back. Maybe we'll do it this Sunday. Maybe, fuck it. We'll just do it this Sunday and just bring it back. Can you just put everything into liquidity pools or staking? I mean, yeah, I'm like fine on that side. I wouldn't do like the LP side. I don't need to. Like even just the interest rate off, you know, kind of, you know, pooled stuff from portfolio is fine. Can you share your thoughts on USDT dominance? I think that's probably that. I think that question is probably the perfect time to end the stream. I think that shows where we are and why it's probably a good time to pause there. I appreciate all of you being here. Like I say, every single time that I finish one of these streams, it's always a great pleasure and a joy to be able to sit here and just discuss my thoughts on the market, answer your questions, and run through things with everybody in kind of a group setting. So that's always appreciated. So I appreciate your attendance. I appreciate you contributing to the discussions and to the chat and to just the general way that we conduct these streams. That's always greatly appreciated. There will be a replay of this. Although, to be honest with you, there will be a replay of this, but don't even bother watching it. Like, if you come in late, this is the summary, right? Like, fuck all's happening. Once again, I have to sit here, and maybe I should time the streams better so I don't have to just say, I don't know what's going on, because that's not the usual impression. But right now, failure back inside multiple ranges for multiple markets. Metals still continuing to look good. Global tension. Issues with uncertainty, a market that's going to be more volatile, a market that's going to be more reactive, a market that's going to be very news-led, and a situation in which it's going to be very poor for the majority of people to be actively trading this market. So therefore, I really, really encourage you to enjoy this weekend, take some time off, see what happens in the market, see what happens in the news. You got plenty of time to position for things if we get some sort of resolution. You got plenty of time to be able to make those changes. If you are nervous about continued downside, if you are nervous about this weakness in the market, then make sure you think about what's your risk tolerance. Can you hold back down if the market starts to go lower? What does that look like for you? And so a lot of this will now come down to kind of personal reflection on your positions. What does it look like to go back to break even? Should you be taking profit on things? Does it matter if you take profit and have to reposition in a week's time? Is that really a big deal? So have those kind of personal reflections and enjoy the weekend in the meanwhile. So I'm going to be back with a couple of streams. We're going to be taking a look at meme coins. We're going to be running through the trench stuff. We're going to be a little bit more active there in terms of discussion. Something that I've been doing on a personal side, but bringing kind of to the front in terms of the way that that's going to be displayed. If anybody would like to see my portfolio, my stock positioning, my trades, then obviously you can join up at the Haven and you'll get access to all of that. The link's going to be in my Twitter bio. And obviously if you want access to the TG group, that's going to be through the BLOFIN link that's been shared in chat or is underneath the tweet from the stream tonight. But a huge thank you once again for joining me. I hope that you've had a good week, regardless of the way that the markets have turned out in the end. And I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend in between. And please take some time away. Let the market do its thing. It's probably going to be an absolute bitch this weekend. So do something else. And I'll catch you guys probably at the start.